Welcome back to another episode of The PA is In. So we have a very special guest today, which I feel like I say every time we have a guest, but to me, this guest is extra special. So today is our anniversary. We've been married for 10 years today, which is the reason for this episode. So our guest today is my beloved husband, Dan Bingaman. So Dan has been on the show once before, talking about specifically finances and how we manage money inside of our marriage. That was way back on episode 35, if you want to tune back into that. Today, we're going to do a little life update. We are going to share some things that have been working well and what we're working on inside of our relationship. And Dan is super excited to be here. He's going to answer some questions about what it's been like being married to a PA for the last decade, specifically this crazy PA who has big dreams about business and podcasting and influencing the PA community and serving this incredible team. Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. I've never done this before, but I'm going to share something intimate, literally about my intimates on the podcast. After trying Vibrant Body Company's certified clean first layer bras and underwear, I threw everything else away. Life is too short to wear bras that don't fit. So schedule your virtual fit consultation with their master bra designer, Heidi. You get to Zoom, do live measurements, and find the exact right fit for you before ordering. Use the link in the show notes or the discount code Tracy15 for 15% off your Vibrant Body Company order. Make sure you try the thong and the semi-demi everywhere bra. You'll thank me later. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's get into it. First of all, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, love.
One of our kids this morning said, this is the best anniversary ever. I'm so excited to have been married to you for 10 years. So a whole decade we've been together. Let's start with what I hope is a relatively easy question. What do you think is going well in our relationship?
What's going well in our relationship? I think that it's kind of a twofold answer. I think we understand what makes each other tick, what each other needs, and the second part of that is the flexibility to give each other the opportunity to execute on, ideas, things that help each other, be or do those things that make each other tick.
And I feel like that flexibility is something that we had to figure out over time.
Yeah.
I feel like initially I sort of thought things are going to be a certain way. This is what's been working for the last year or two or whatever. And this is the way things are going to stay. And in the last 10 years, I've realized like the one constant in life is things are always changing. So, when I say, hey, I want to start a podcast, or you say, hey, I have a big project at work, the other person is willing to sort of say, like, first of all, congratulations, I support you. Like, I'm cheering you on. Yeah. Second of all, what do you need from me and how can I serve you in this season?
Yeah. And I think early on in many relationships, people will just kind of accommodate to everything they believe the other person needs and not think about their own needs. And kind of as time has gone on, I think that's where we've realized that there are things that we aren't doing that we really want to get back into, whether it's for me, various sports activities, things like that, or for you, some of the ventures that you've gone forward with, the podcast, some of the other business items. And I think that has been really important, and growing into that has been really a key to our relationship.
Yeah, and sort of being attuned to the fact that things are going to change over time and expecting that change, and that change isn't necessarily bad, but anticipating and also checking in with each other, like ourselves, and then with each other. Hey, I've really been wanting to do this, but this is a conflict we have, or how would that affect Sundays with the kids,
Yeah.
or practices on this day, like you just wanted to start playing baseball again.
Yep.
Practices on Sundays. Normally we spend Sundays after church together as a family. It's the end of ski season, so sort of the overlapping of like what we normally do on a Sunday and integrating that into what we're going to do. I agree. I think that's something that we
Yeah.
do well.
Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, just skiing. I know skiing is your thing. Growing up so much with it, yes, it's something I grew up with, but certainly not to the extent that you did, nor to the desire or kind of need that you've had. So I've done everything I feel as though I could do to allow you to go with one or more or no kids,
Yeah.
and get out there and be on the mountain, and when weather permits, obviously,
Sure.
be able to do that. So
Yeah.
just as I know, now that baseball season is coming around, that you'll do what is necessary for me to be able to, and I'm not asking to be able to go play 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's not a huge time commitment, fortunately. Just like skiing hasn't been a huge time commitment, I know that you'll do what's necessary to allow me to do that as well, and I greatly appreciate that.
And I think that over time we have been diligent about, this is a team effort. Like this
Yeah.
is a partnership. We happen to have a lot of kids. Two of our kids are older now, but our three little ones obviously need care. Like I can't go skiing while you're at baseball unless we hire a babysitter. But what can we do to sort of trade those things off and
Yep.
be where we need to be so that everyone is getting the time and attention that they need, so that everyone is getting that fulfillment. And personally, as a mom, I think when our kids were really young, I felt physically attached to that. I mean, sometimes quite literally when I was nursing them, physically attached to them. And that season was hard for me because I felt like I was, I don't want to say encumbered, but I'm going to say encumbered. Like I couldn't go ski for 6 hours when we
Yeah.
had a newborn because number one, I was exhausted. And number two, someone needed me
Sure.
to be here. And so as our kids have grown and become obviously less physically dependent on which parent is home, that has been life-giving to me to be able to go for a run, go skiing, go out with my girlfriends, like go to
Yeah.
church with a friend or whatever it is, that I can do that with that time like mentally away from the kids. Do you feel like that too as a dad, that when you get to take a run or when you get to go play baseball that you get recharged also?
Absolutely. And I think part of what we've also learned, or I know I've learned as we've gone through this, past 10 years, has been I need to find the opportunities to be able to do things if I don't think it's something that could happen. Running is a great example. Not something that I think can likely happen before or after work. Like usually when I'm working from home, I'll jump on the treadmill for a run during the middle of the day at lunchtime. I'll eat while I'm working, and then I'll jump on the treadmill. And that works out great for me because it doesn't take away from my ability to do other things like play baseball. It's not like I'm foregoing that opportunity, but I'm getting to do both. And it's really finding that flexibility in, a relationship and in my schedule, figuring out the best way to utilize my time, which certainly has not been something historically that I've been able to do, or just haven't had the ability to maneuver my schedule to be
Make
able
it
to do that.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is imperfect because we're humans, but I feel like something that we do pretty well. I might be the one that doesn't do this as well, is that there's not a lot of scorekeeping. There's not a lot of like, I skied for this amount of
Yeah.
time, you saying like, well, the last 3 weekends you've gone skiing and some of those were by yourself. So you owe me this
Yeah.
time.
I think if you start doing that, you're going to find yourself in an emotional state that is difficult to come out of. If you start keeping score, it's difficult to stop. And I am a very competitive person. So there
That's
are
like a
certain
super understatement.
there are certain things in life that I know that I can't do. If I do them, it's going to just totally impact life in general. One of them is I've got a lot of friends and family that hunt.
Hmm.
Hunting is one of those things that me as a passionate person, I know a lot of people that when they do hunt, they're gone for a month, 2 months, not 24 hours a day, but a lot of waking time,
Early
whether
and
it's
late and
super
like,
early,
yeah.
super late.
Mhm.
Something I would love to do, but I know I can't because there are other things that I would have to sacrifice. One of which being time with family, some of those other activities that we talked about. So I know that's one of those things I can't do. Similar to trying to keep score in our relationship. If it's a competition, chances are I'm going to want to win, and that just isn't a good way of looking at it. Not a great mindset to be in.
And I think that helps to assuage some of that guilt that sometimes parents feel when they're heading out to do a solo activity without their kids and where their partner's going to be watching their kids. When you have a partner who willingly says, when you say, hey, I want to go do this, or I need some time away for this reason or that reason, whether it's work related or personal, when your partner says, sure, go, no problem, and
Yeah,
truly means no problem,
yeah,
like doesn't say like no problem in like an eye rolling, guilty, manipulative way sometimes, but I try not to, then you can freely go. Then you
yeah,
feel like you don't feel the burden. And I think if either of us feels guilty, it's self inflicted.
yeah. And I also think thinking that way removes a sense of flexibility.
Mm.
Like I said, flexibility is extremely important. And when you're keeping score, it's not as flexible. Like
Mm-hmm.
uh, there may be four different things in a row that I allow you to do or that you allow me to do. And I say allow, but I don't really mean like
Sure.
it's communication and being able to take advantage of opportunities. But when you have certain things like four things in a row or something like that happens, that really becomes a problem. And like I said, removes the flexibility, which is really key. And I know there are going to be times in life where I'm going to have and uh, th- with work, massive projects occur
Yep.
and they consume almost every waking hour
Mm-hmm.
sometimes where I get on calls internationally that are super early in the morning or late in the evening. And the past couple months, I have not had, certainly there have been some, but there haven't been a great number of those. It has given me the flexibility to have you be able to do more with the podcast and things like that. And I know that there are going to be projects like that are going to come up real soon.
Is this my warning? No.
And and they are going to mean flexibility in the other direction. And that's really huge because it gives both of us the opportunity to build ourselves, develop ourselves with personally as well as through our business and things like that.
Yeah.
And is really a key to happiness with each other, with our relationships, with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
I think expecting that ebb and flow and for it to be, it's not you get to go to volleyball on Wednesdays, so I get to go to girls' night on Thursdays, and then it's again your turn for a weeknight activity, and then again my turn. Like that's not how life works.
Yeah,
Things ebb and flow. And certainly when I was launching this show, when I was like getting things up and running, there was just more. I had to
yeah,
do more. And at that time I was working full time. So I didn't have middle of the day opportunities to record. So I was recording early in the morning, in the evening, after bedtime, times when normally we would be hanging out, or spending time together or spending time as a family. And that we sort of just consciously said, we get this as a sacrifice. We're going to do it for a short amount of time. So That's us bragging about all the things that we're doing well. What are some areas, Dan, that you think that we
Hmm.
could improve on? Which is always a loaded question to ask your partner when you're recording your
Yeah,
conversation.
certainly, especially in real time here. But I think, and I'm not going to comment for you. I'll
Oh, I'll
comment
comment
for
for
myself.
me.
I'm sure that you will. I'm sure that you will, and I love that about you. Um, for me, it's something I need to improve is my reaction to, and it's not. I'm going to say this, but I'm going to ask you to hold on your thoughts. My reaction to your ideas.
Okay.
You have very grandiose, very large ideas, and you like to act quickly as an understatement. Like you like to implement plans,
As I'm
ideas,
having the idea.
and and if I don't respond with an absolute immediate positive, it's perceived as, or I sense that it's sometimes
It
perceived
seems.
as a negative response. And
Mhm.
for me, that's not the case. You are much more quick acting, quick planning. I like to take more time. I'm more cautious with ideas, and it's not that I'm thinking negatively, nor that I'm responding negatively, but I don't respond immediately, which is sometimes perceived as, I believe, perceived as a negative. And so, what I need to improve on there is my quick response being something that gives you the sense that I'm processing it. I understand, not a negative, more positive, that sort of thing. My reaction to those things as I'm thinking, and slowly processing, because I'm just more cautious in that way. That's something that I need to improve on.
I think for me, I I get in these seasons where I'm really proactive about our marriage, where I like, Dan's gonna laugh at this, buy the marriage book and decide we're gonna read it together and we're gonna go on all of these date nights. And this is why 2023 is gonna be the year for our relationship, where like this is a great example of like I have an idea and then I act as I'm having the idea. Like I'll be at work, I'll think, I wanna read this book and I think Dan should read it too. I order 2 copies on Amazon. I get all excited. I schedule time on the calendar for us to read it together and review it. I decide to book a date night every month. And then I like, by the way, mention it to you. like I'm like the only person in our relationship because I made a plan, right? Because I had an idea, because
Yeah.
I decided we were going to do a thing. And if I could change anything about myself or something that I'm working on is a better way to phrase that, I would be more considerate in that I would consider what you think or feel about these things before I implement them. And when I share them with you, which this ties in nicely to what you were saying, when I share them with you, that I shouldn't feel, or I should try not to feel, personally attacked if you're not cartwheeling around the living room when I say, I want to read this book about marriage. And I think we should do like a book study on it where we read a chapter a week. And I'm like, I'm already, so I had the idea like 3 or 4 hours ago. So now I'm already like, I have this plan on how it's going to make our marriage so much better and our life's going to be better and like blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, well, why are you at the starting line of this idea? But I literally just told you about the idea. So, like, the starting line is a very reasonable place for you to
Yeah,
be because you just heard about it. So, I think those two things fit nicely
they
together
do,
as the
for
answer to
sure.
that question about what are some areas that we can improve upon. Okay, I'm interested to hear about this. I put this question in so I could tell you something that's bothering me about
Oh,
you.
okay.
What? What is my most annoying habit? I also have
Oh,
some
so
guesses about what you're
I
gonna
get
say.
this. So you really put this question in so you could tell me what bothers you the most about me,
There's a
what my
thing. There's a thing.
most annoying habit. Um,
There's
why
so
don't
many to choose
why don't
from.
you
It's
tell me why don't you tell me yours first, since I'm
so you can have an idea of like the level of annoyance.
yeah, exactly.
Um, my
I'm
my
kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I think the thing that you do that annoys me the most, this is gonna sound so petty. When you throw your floss away, it doesn't go all the way in the garbage can.
Mm.
It goes on the edge.
So I'm, I
Do you
believe
know
it
that it
goes.
doesn't go in? Probably not,
No,
because I fix
no.
it. Because then I
So
have to put your floss all the way in.
occasionally I do see that it's hanging, and our
It's a weird
garbage
garbage
can, our garbage
can
can is inside a pull-out
hamper.
hamper kind of drawer thing that has a wire
Which
kind
is
of
entirely more than you ever wanted to
cage,
know about.
kind of has a wire cage around it. And I don't pull the cage out, drop the floss in the garbage, and then push it back in. I reach in
Maybe you
and
could
let it
start
go.
doing
So
that.
I have noticed a few times where it hangs onto the wire,
Yeah.
and I'll take it from there and put it in the garbage. For example, when
But then
I do
sometimes
the
it doesn't
garbage,
go
when
all
I
the
take
way
the
in
garbage out,
It doesn't
I
go all the way
understand
in the
that.
garbage.
Okay, so I will definitely
Therapy
I will
/ a podcast episode happening
I
here.
will definitely do that.
All right, what's my most annoying habit?
Most annoying habit. The thing that I think you may want to edit out, that I will say, when you take medicine before bed.
So I have a weird thing where I have this strange fear about swallowing pills with water, which I think stems from like PTSD from when I was a child and my parents tried to get me to take medicine with water and I was young and I couldn't swallow and I thought I was going to die. Very dramatic, I know. So I don't take medicine with water, which is important to know before he tells the story. I take it with food.
Takes it with food.
But I brush my teeth first.
Brushes her teeth first. Takes her medicine afterward.
Why do I do that? I don't know.
And when she comes to bed, kiss before bed. Generally, it's cereal that you use to take it with,
like
and
Cheerios.
Most
or some
often,
kind of cereal.
it's been either that puffed wheat cereal or Cheerios, which has a very strong aroma. And it's not that I don't even.
It doesn't.
I enjoy those cereals. I just have brushed my teeth. You've just brushed yours, and we're kissing, and I smell it.
Strange.
Very strange.
I thought you were gonna say when I fall asleep on the couch.
No, I don't mind that you fall asleep on the couch.
So when we're watching TV in the evening, I will, what Dan says is assume the position, or I start to like slide down or like rest my head. And he always like pauses what we're watching and he'll say, "Do you want to go to bed?"
I see you're tired. I see you're tired. I know that you're ready
like a parent with a child
for resting. Let's go to sleep. Let's go to sleep now. No. I want to watch the movie. I want to watch. Okay. But you are now in sleeping position. You've moved from watching to sleeping. I can see you're going to fall asleep. It's more that when you tell me,
I'm not tired.
I'm not tired. I want to watch this. I'm committed to it. I want to watch this.
100% of the time.
4 seconds later, I see her eyes are closed. I know that that's not necessarily the case anymore. Mm-hmm. But that's something, yes, it had bothered me, I think, for some time. But one of those things that I've come to realize and come to learn. It's one of your things. And someday, maybe not today, but someday I'm going to look back on that as this endearing thing.
But that's not today.
That's not today. No, not today.
One of my very favorite things about being a podcaster is crossing paths with other incredible podcasters. If you love this show, especially when I share about my experience with healthcare burnout and recovery, you're going to want to check out the podcast Burnout: What I've Learned So Far, hosted by my friend Meg Letty. Meg is a former CT surgery PA turned advocate for healthcare provider wellness. Turn in to hear how she recovered from burnout and integrated well-being into her life to create a life of dreams, not nightmares. Add Burnout: What I Have Learned So Far with Meg Letty to your podcast queue to start your journey to wellness and healing today.
So I want to change gears a little bit. We have been using a relatively new, maybe for the last 6 to 12 months, tactic to divide up the logistical labor. Why are you looking at me like that? And the mental load or mental labor in our household. So if you haven't read the book Fair Play by Eve Rodsky, what we've been doing is based on that book, which I read, and implementing this strategy to have a goal of fairly dividing up the labor. If you listen to my early podcast episodes, you probably heard that when I was in the depths of burnout professionally, feeling resentment and like I was responsible for more than my fair share of mental load of taking kids to the dentist was something that I talked about early on in the podcast. And I didn't really have a mechanism to sort of evaluate what I was doing, what you were doing, and make sure that we have fairly divided up our labor. So, how do you feel like that's been working?
I feel like it's been working well.
I do too.
I think it's an interesting plan. I believe that there are really two ways that you can go about doing it. And one way is implementing a plan, checking in frequently, maneuvering those things around so that everybody gets to share, or not everybody, but that both parties get to share in specific responsibilities. Maybe dishes is you for a period of time, then maybe it's me for a period of time.
It's you right now.
It is me right now. Is it me right now?
It's you right
now. It is
now.
me right now.
You did them last time.
I did, yes. So there's a very strict implementation of that process. And then I feel like there's a more loose interpretation of it.
And the strict implementation is what is recommended. Like in the book, it's recommended like the person who is responsible for the task is responsible for like thinking about it, implementing it, like making any adjustments that need to be made. An area that I personally feel I really like when you are totally responsible for a task. So like sometimes I will just load the dishwasher or have the kids unload it or like, and that's part of dishes, but it's also part of like living here. Or I have the laundry card this week, but you will, when you're working from home, like throw in a load of laundry, put it in the dryer. Yeah. I'm usually the folder when I have the laundry card.
Hate folding.
And no one likes folding. I don't know. If you want to come fold our laundry, let us know.
Nobody wants to come.
Who knows? Maybe someone out there likes folding laundry, but there are certain cards, like I am the scheduler. I have the person for our family schedule, but you are the sports and extracurricular activities. And one of my favorite things about you being the sports person is I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I am not on the like group text messages with the parents and all the coaches. I am not the person who's like sending money for the coach's gift. You will put the things on the schedule or tell me when they are and I'll put them on the schedule, but I'm not signing the kids up for sports. I'm not maintaining that at all. And for me, we have a lot of kids, young kids in like a couple sports. Like I have a friend who's like, oh, this text chain from the coaches. And I'm just like, oh, I'm not in it. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, Dan is holding the sports card. So he will tell me if there's a change in the schedule, but I don't need this like mindless chatter from it. So I am not responsible for that. So it has been very freeing.
Good.
To me to be not solely responsible for all the things.
I think one of the things that made it a little more challenging was when we were changing some things, maybe back and forth, that unless I had the list somewhere handy, I'm like, am I mail right now? Am I supposed to be going through all the mail and checking the bills and doing that sort of thing? No, it changed to you or whatever. That made it a little bit challenging because especially if things come in the way of, those weekly meetings to look at and to review what the items are.
Maybe monthly.
Correct. And that's why I said there are two ways of doing it, with a very, very strict plan and regimen and kind of the way that we're doing it, which I like it now that we have the set items and we haven't really moved them.
We will occasionally trade dishes and laundry. I feel like those are the things that like that person will be like, hey, can you
or even not ask, like maybe I can see that you're very busy with podcast stuff and doing other things and skiing and this and that.
Super behind on laundry and nothing is clean.
And I'll throw some laundry in. And I know that's totally against the objective. You should not do this. Yeah. But I feel like that's part of the flexibility again in the relationship, is knowing that there are certain things that may be appreciated. I think laundry and dishes are two of those things that if I take some laundry away from you, you're going to appreciate that. If you take some dishes away, I'm going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
If we take away bills
Mm-hmm.
or opening mail and, throwing that process off, I feel like that's where things can get really messy, especially
Yeah.
with, um,
Bills in a
tax
pile and
time and
documents.
bills and
Yeah.
things like that really can create some problems. So that's
Me
why
too.
I kind of like a little bit more flexibility in the process. Yeah.
I think it's
Otherwise,
working well.
yeah.
The other thing that I think was very helpful about using the fair play practice was that when you're sort of, there's like a little bit of front loading of like, what are the tasks?
Yeah.
What, and they have you define like the minimum standard, which I think to the moms or the wives, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, listening, I don't actually have a problem with this with you because you're a little anal about cleaning and stuff, but that you define a minimum standard, which in our marriage is probably more for me than it is for you. But I hear a lot of women say, he can't do it. And I'm like, he can do it. He's just not doing it your way. And so what it does is like, if you're going to do the dishes, the minimum expected standard is like the dishwasher is loaded and run before bed. The dinner dishes are done, like not left on the counter for days, not left soaking for days. Like, because if you don't define the minimum expected standard in our home is X, then your partner's like doing the dishes, but they're sitting for days and you would have done them the day of. And then you're not carrying that card, but you're still resentful about the way that it's being done. So, sort of establishing, like, for us, this, I think I talked about this on a previous podcast episode, the trash. So, like, when you would take out the trash, and then I would have to put the trash bag in for the new clean trash bag. Like, I was
Which
like,
I think
the
may have been
minimum.
twice ever.
10 years has happened twice, and it really pissed me off both times.
And only because I didn't do it as I was taking the trash out.
Well, then
bag in.
I'm going to throw something away, and the bag is empty. There's no bag in there. So I was like, the minimum expected standard is like you put the bag in right away, so that when I go to throw something out, the bag is in there. But all of that to say, clearly defining like, this is what we expect for this task when you're the person who's doing it. I do think if there's any area for improvement, it's like mail and bills, just like all the paperwork that comes.
Yeah.
We don't have a great system for that.
Agreed.
Stay tuned for our 20-year anniversary. Maybe we'll have figured out how to
hopefully before that
deal with mail in the next 10 years. Okay. I want to do a little like, how's it going? Life update. So during the last 10 years. So if anyone listening doesn't know this fun fact about us, we eloped. So we eloped to Las Vegas. We told no one that we were getting married, including my parents. My mom is still not over it. It's been 10 years. So during the last 10 years, we've had 3 babies. We have 2 older sons. So Dan had 2 sons before we met. So one is a full-blown like college age adult. One is turning 18 this summer. So in the last 10 years, there have been tons of changes, many seasons of life, one in which we had teenagers and toddlers simultaneously. And now we have like littles, younger kids, and adults. This has been like a big transition. So I'm curious, Dan, what has been your favorite season of parenting, and what season has felt the hardest for you?
I can't say that I have a favorite, nor that I really find any specific season to be the hardest. And what I mean by that is each area or thinking about each of the kids and where they are currently, they all have something that's really great about that season. Like Rayanne, with being 4, she's got this personality, this cuddly personality, this loving aura to her that's just incredible. That I see her, she runs up this big hug, and it makes me feel full. My heart feels full, and it's just incredible. And yet there are times where she's still very much in the terrible twos, coming out of it for sure. And I know that whole terrible twos thing can be 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the kid, depending on a lot of different factors. But sometimes it's that stage where she's melting down and it's like, this could not be any worse than it is right now. And I know it could be
Yeah.
a lot worse. And
Yeah.
I fully understand that. And I'm grateful that, everybody's healthy and
Yeah.
happy for the most
you.
part. But thinking up through the little boys, Archer and Colby,
Mhm.
really getting into sports,
Yeah.
learning, adjusting to things as they encounter them,
Mhm.
has been really fantastic. Me being able to, in my own way, teach them how to play certain sports or teach them about things.
Mhm.
Talking about cars, which is something I'm passionate about,
Mhm.
doing those things with them and seeing that they really don't have much knowledge on those now, but that they are learning
Mhm.
is really incredible.
Yeah.
Through the older ones, I mean, Zach, I don't know when it was. I've tried a couple times to determine when he became far smarter than me.
For a while
Sometime in
ago
the
for
last couple
me.
years,
Yeah.
just seeing how much he's growing in personality, which has obviously it's been happening the last 20 years,
Yeah.
but seeing how much he's growing, and there are certainly challenging times. uh, he's a person that very much like me has difficulty with decisions, or at least processing them. It takes him a while to process things just like it does for me. And sometimes it's almost debilitating for him that it prevents him from making a decision that really could have a positive impact on him. So that's a real challenge, seeing that, knowing that he's such a smart kid. And that's part of his issue is he overthinks things, and it just kind of cripples him sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, learning about and figuring things out, producing things, he does a lot with 3D printing, and some of the things that he thinks up, designs, builds, just really fantastic and amazing. Cooper, similarly, he's going to be 18.
Yeah.
Really, uh, I think is just about at the end of his high school career, doing really well with school at the moment, enjoying sports as well, playing lacrosse, things like that. But we've had our challenges with him as well. So I mean, there's a lot to love and not to love in all of those seasons of life. So I really can't say that there's one that I enjoy more than another. One thing that I do look back on and appreciate at this point is that there are no more bottles in the house.
No more diapers.
No more diapers in
No
the
more
house.
diapers.
I do appreciate, seeing little ones, babies as friends and other family, are
Maybe
going
not as
through
much
that.
as I appreciate
I
seeing newborns.
Yeah, and I know you encourage me quite often when there's a baby around to hold the baby. I don't need to do that. I did it. I did it
do.
enough.
I need to hold the baby.
I appreciate, and we'll say hello and maybe occasionally hold a baby, but certainly not something I need. And I know you very much enjoy that. So I don't want to steal your time. I want to give you that opportunity.
I do. If you're local and you have a newborn, let me snuggle it, please. So I feel like right now is my favorite season of parenting. And I feel like I've felt that several times. So I don't even know. I don't know if it's just that like I like to live in the present. And so right now feels like I finally feel like with our youngest being 4, we can do things. We can go, not like on a 14-mile hike, but we can go on a hike. We can go and do things. Everyone can get their own shoes on. Everyone can get in the car. Everyone can ski down the mountain. Everyone can do the thing. And no one is like infant in arms. And I love that season when they were young. And like, if you have a baby, I will hold it. But it's so cool when they figure out how to do things and you can do more activities as a family.
Yeah.
That really makes me happy. I think the season that felt hardest for me, I think there's 2, and probably it was the transition to first becoming a stepmom when we first got married, and like naively thinking as a young early 20 something like, oh, how hard could it be? And then realizing like, oh, it could be very hard, and having to navigate co-parenting with their mom and all of that stuff, which like now feels like a distant memory, but as it was happening felt like a huge big deal. And then each time we had a baby, and I think that was like mentally, physically, emotionally, in some seasons when we had a newborn, especially when they were nursing, I felt like I was like missing out on my ability to sort of like function and be myself because they were so dependent on me.
Yeah.
And that was physically, I've talked about that a lot, like physically, mentally, emotionally. Plus, you're so tired.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that that is not the norm for us anymore. So, really, the crux of this episode, which it only took us 37 minutes to get to, is I would love to talk to you about your experience as the spouse of a PA, specifically me. And I think you sort of alluded to this before. I am a PA who is not just a PA. No one is just a PA. I am this multi-passionate, super dreamer, entrepreneur, jumps in with 2 feet, and then sometimes asks you about stuff after I jumped.
Most often.
Talk to me about what that has been like, specifically these last like 2+ years of me hosting the show and sharing our life and my career and serving this community and putting myself out there into the world. How that has been for you.
It has been a learning experience for sure.
Yeah.
Certainly challenging at times. I would say more fulfilling and comforting probably than anything. And I say that because just with what you had to learn going through the PA program that you went through, knowing that just about any physical issue, concern, thing like that, that I have, and I've had certainly my fair share, or that others in the family have had, gives me comfort that you're going to be able to give us the appropriate, not treatment, but guidance on what we should be doing, whether it's, for one of us, for our immediate or even, related family members, that is just incredible because physical health and mental health are so important in life. And I just really feel like that's something that is incredible to have, especially with such a broad range of knowledge, with all of the things that you've done as a PA, from surgery to the things that you're doing now. Like all of those things from beginning to end gives such a great variety of knowledge in health, that it's just, I think, an extremely valuable thing to have. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I think is kind of one of those things that makes you tick or allows you to be who you are, is having people on your side, some of your close friends, and others that you can talk to about those things, because I'm not at that same level as you when it comes to health, and medical situations where, you'll talk to somebody about something specific, and I'll just use the phrase where you geek out or nerd out and just really go at it.
We do love our medical terminology.
My goodness. And it's something that I know that unless I go back to school and go through those things, which I'm not going to do, that I could never fulfill that. And where I'm grateful, like I said, that you have some individuals in your life or in our life that you can do that with. So yeah.
It's interesting because I think that is an interesting aspect of our relationship, that what we do professionally is so different that I too, when you start talking really about like the technical details about what you do, and I've never worked in corporate America, so I have this sort of like outside looking in view of what you're doing, that I sometimes get lost when you're on a call and you're talking about like these specific technical things, that I don't have this like full appreciation of what you do because I've never done it. So I don't really get it in the way that like someone who works in your field would get it.
I think it all goes back to that, your first question and what I said, and each other, having the knowledge or realizing what makes each other tick. Because there are certain things like I can't get anything from what I do here at home that gives me the opportunity to think the way when I do at work. Like that is something I absolutely love the people I work with, love the people I work for. Amazing organization. So grateful for the opportunities that I'm provided. And again, the way I think there, the problem solving and doing some of those things, I don't have the opportunity to do here, or it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Similarly, I love, as I mentioned, I'm a car guy. I love cars. The way I think about cars and approach cars is not the way I would approach something in our personal life,
Mm-hmm.
not the way I'd approach something with our kids, nor the way I approach something with work. So it's again something that gives me that outlet, being able to work on a car, or, you know, trying to troubleshoot something there is different than troubleshooting something at work or
Mm-hmm.
in our personal life. And so all of these different things help give me what I need to be able to be fulfilled. And really, that's, I think, extremely important. And again, appreciate the opportunities that all of these things have given me and given us in our life.
Which just speaks to an important reminder about how, as humans, we're multidimensional,
Yeah.
right? So we fill different roles professionally and socially and personally and individually in all of these different ways. And I sometimes think about this when I have personally really not ever considered myself to be a specifically creative person. And I think that's because like I'm like technically not good at like drawing, which obviously is like one tiny aspect of creativity.
Tiny, yeah.
But now that I've like created this and built this community and like created this podcast, someone said to me like you're creative, you're a creator. And I was like, really? But I think about when people say like, oh, I needed a creative outlet or I wanted to express myself in a certain way. It's okay. And not only okay, it's normal and necessary to have these different aspects of your personality that are fulfilled by different areas of your life. And it's not.
Yeah. And just like your way of creating is through your podcast and doing that sort of thing, mine is through art generally.
Yeah.
The creator piece, you know, there's the problem solvers as well. And I think just the way that I mentioned those various pieces of me, you know, there are the pieces of you, like your work specifically, the podcast as your creator, being able to do physical things, you know, being on the treadmill, you know, yoga, whatever. Those are all things that contribute to who you are and really giving you those opportunities and
just like aspects, like when you look at a diamond, like it's multifaceted, right? Like it's not just one dimensional. There's lots of different things that make it.
And each person has their own number of facets. How many things, and I'll use the diamond analogy, how many facets will make you sparkle the brightest?
Yeah. And how can people around you help you to express to the fullest that ability or that desire or, you know, that thing that is inside of you that you want to get out?
Yeah. And we try to surround ourselves with people that will help reveal those facets and give that to us.
Or be that person for someone else. You know,
exactly.
Someone struggling.
For sure.
Okay. I want to talk about burnout, specifically my burnout, and how it felt for you when I was going through that very hard season of burnout and illness. And I've been very vocal about sort of admitting both to myself and to the world that during that season of burnout, I didn't show up well for you. I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. I certainly wasn't the mother that I wanted to be because I was so depleted. I was not taking care of myself and I was ill. And I think that that did contribute to it also. What was your experience as my spouse during that season, as observing me as a mom? And what have you seen, I think, to like put a positive spin on it so it doesn't sound terrible? And what improvements or what changes have you seen in me as I've recovered from that burnout?
Yeah, I think it was remarkably challenging, really difficult in a number of ways. It was difficult for me to see you in pain and struggling. It was difficult for me personally to know or to try to do what I thought would help and see all of my attempts fail miserably. Or for me, it felt like they failed miserably. And I'd be knowing that there were physical components as well, knowing there was really nothing other than encourage you to seek medical assistance or help for those. was really, really challenging for me. Really, really something that I struggled with as well. I think I had done the best that I could to try to support you, but also knowing that I needed to be able to be there for the kids. Not that you weren't. I think
In many
you,
ways, I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't my whole self in being there for them.
and I think you're very harsh on yourself in that way. You certainly were there for them, maybe not as much as you wanted to be, but that's part of the struggle of things like that, of
Yeah.
medical, physical issues and things like that, and the burnout. It makes it difficult to impossible to do what you want to do. And that was one of the things that was really a challenge for me, was your desire to do things wasn't being limited. Like, you still wanted to push forward and move forward with all of your ideas and thoughts, and trying to encourage you to ease up was not a very
I was
successful
not receptive
endeavor
to
for
that.
me. Not
Yeah.
extremely receptive.
Yeah.
But once you did start realizing what was happening, realizing that there were physical limitations, things that you needed to address from that regard, and getting the help that you needed, certainly a great deal of I won't say that a great deal of time passed. At this point, it feels as though, and looking back, as we were in the thick of things, it seemed very long. It seemed like it was really taking quite some time.
Yeah.
But again, with patience and flexibility and those kind of things, obviously we made it through. And it seems like almost a distant memory at this point.
I mean, it's been a couple years, so
It has, yeah. Some things still very fresh, I think, in both of our minds, and something that I know you want to make sure that other people understand, come to terms with, and hopefully will help, listeners that are experiencing something similar. What I would encourage all of you listening to do is, if you do have a significant other or someone in your life that is cautioning you or trying to give you help, is to try to be receptive. I know that's difficult, especially from my perspective.
Yeah.
It was really challenging for me to go through that, like I mentioned. Try to give them your ear. I know it's easier said than done, but it is really, I think, helpful for both sides to try to be understanding about that type of thing. That in the end, we got through it. I think, again, that understanding, making sure that you were able to seek out support from friends, medical providers, things like that, I think was really important. And also, I think the other piece of advice then is listen to your body, because I think your body is trying to tell you things
My body
as you're
was
going
like
through
screaming.
this. Yeah, and there were so many times where, for everybody that's listening, I think you probably know that Tracy is a remarkably early riser. She likes to start her day extremely early. 4 a.m. is the common time when you've got your alarm set for 4 a.m. I get up a little bit after that when on days that I don't go into the office, but I could see that you were just totally wiped out, totally exhausted,
and I was insomniac, so I was waking up at like 2 a.m. and up for the day.
Yeah. And
so
so try to pay attention to your body and to listen to your body. And if you make adjustments and they aren't helping your situation, make sure you try to seek some help, some guidance from others, some assistance from others, and that should help.
Yeah. I remember during that time, it seemed like you were frustrated because, like, I think if you could have like fixed me, like if there was something that you could have done that would have made me better, like you would have done anything to make me feel better. And then the other thing that I want to say, which, like, hindsight's 2020, and I'm not burned out anymore, so I think it's easier for me to say now than it would have been for me to like hear or understand during the season when I was really in the depths of burnout, was that you would say like, what can I do? Like, how can I help? Like, And to me, I was like, well, that's one more thing I have to decide, like what you're going to do to help me. I remember thinking like, just do something, anything. And so if you are like trying to support someone who is burned out or you think might be burned out, I would say like, give them an option. Like, hey, could I cook you dinner? Or, do you want a nap, or would you like to play with the kids and I'll do the dishes, right? So like A or B, right? Which of these things during this time in this moment would feel better for you?
And I think the other piece of advice, I gave the advice for if you are feeling burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
From the other side, my
Mm-hmm.
advice would be to be patient with those people that are going through it. They are really struggling, and they need your patience and understanding. And it is really difficult, but there eventually will be an end in sight, and you'll get through it. It's just try to be patient as possible, because that will be helpful for both sides.
Yeah, I didn't feel pressure from you to recover. I just knew it's hard to see your partner hurting. And so
Sure.
I was hurting. I was in a season that I was really not in a good place. And it was hard for you to watch me, someone who's normally like super vibrant, like nothing gets me down, to really struggle. I think it was hard for me mentally to be like, why can't I just like get over this, like snap out of it? If I really think back on the timeline, it was probably 12 to 18 months of me really not being myself.
Yeah.
And even after I quit, I thought like, oh, I'd quit my job, like magically I would be healed from my burnout. Everything would be better. I'd get a new job that was less stressful. I would feel like magically myself again. And it still took a while after that. Like it wasn't like just removing the insult of that job was enough. Like I needed to rest, I needed to recover, I needed to rewire my brain, like so many things that needed to happen for me to heal.
And as everyone, I think, on this podcast or listening knows, the human body and mind are incredible and incredibly complex things. So even if burnout is one of the aspects, the solution is not cut and dry. It's not as though just scaling back hours or something like that will resolve everything. All of that burnout could, as you know, in your situation, can create other physical and health problems that are really challenging or difficult to diagnose and take some time to get through. Yeah. So again, that patience, flexibility, all of that stuff is really important in making sure that you kind of walk the walk, take the steps, be patient with it, as patient as you can. I know, again, we've been saying, it's really challenging. It's difficult. It's easier said than done, but eventually you'll get there. Just need to be patient and walk through it.
Yeah. And that your partner, if you have a partner who's burned out, it's not that they are not wanting to show up better for you or wanting to get better, but that it is hard and it's a process to really get to a point of healing and recovery from burnout. Well, I think this is a good place to end. This has been a lot of fun, honey.
Yes, it has.
So thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
I love you.
Congratulations. You've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.